Hi, my name's Donna Hinkson, and I'm a trainee medium and natural born psychic, and I'm here today with Serena Laidlaw. She's going to tell you a bit about I'm going to tell you a bit about my story, and Serena's going to ask me some questions about my story. Basically, that's it for now, and I'm going to pass you over to Serena. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Donna. Hi, everybody. As Donna said, I'm Serena Laidlaw, and I'm going to be asking Donna just a few questions today to hear about her journey, and I'm sure it's going to be very, very interesting to a lot of people and who'll be able to resonate with quite similar situations, I'm sure. Anyway, Donna, just to sort of kick off, could you tell us a little bit about how your journey started, how it all started?
Well, I think I'll sort of start from about 2016. 2016, I was diagnosed with ASD, an adult with Asperger's. So that's basically when my kind of like journey started for me to decide to change my life a bit, because before that I was in the ordinary 3D world, just plodding along. But then when 2016, when I got my diagnosis, my life completely changed. And I thought to myself, there's got to be more to life than this. So that's when my journey basically to the spiritual realm, I'd say, started. Yes. So basically, I was diagnosed with an ASD, and then basically, I started to think to myself, the voices I was getting in my head, and all the things that were going on in my mind. I was thinking they can't just simply be just voices in my head. I'll have to discover, what are these voices? What are they about? What is my purpose here? There felt like there's bigger questions for me to learn. And also,
how did you actually feel though when you were diagnosed? That day, that week. How did you feel?
When I first was diagnosed that day, I felt like suddenly my whole world changed. I didn't feel like I was the same person. That I'd walked into the hospital as one person, and I walked out the hospital again as another person. And my whole world just completely changed. I thought to myself, I'd spent the last 50 years being one person and always thinking that, wondering why things was always becoming overwhelmed with certain things in life and couldn't cope with them. And then all of a sudden, when I had this diagnosis, I thought to myself, oh my goodness, who am I? Who is this Donna?
Did this hold you back at school and in your jobs?
Oh, yes, it held me back in school. At school, I was always told that I was stupid. I was told that I was never amount to anything. I couldn't spell. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't do what the other children were doing. So I was always comparing myself to the other children. And then to suddenly discover that I'd had this ASD, this autism, this Asperger's, suddenly made me realize, wow, perhaps if I'd have been diagnosed when I was younger, which obviously there wasn't any diagnosis then, if I'd been diagnosed then, I would have perhaps been more successful in life. Perhaps would have had more support, gone to a different type of school, would have been able to release my creativity, would have been able to, just be a lot more of an expanded person. Instead, I became very scared, very insular, very shy, very lost, didn't know how to deal with things in life. And then as I got an adult, it just affected me even more, because every time I tried to take a job or anything, I couldn't understand. I couldn't cope with the information, the level of information people were giving me. They'd be making silly mistakes, and people would be going, "Oh, we haven't got time to tell you all these things. We haven't got time to teach you all this. You must learn it. We show you once, and then you've got to get it." And of course, I couldn't understand after you show me once. I completely just didn't understand what was happening. Didn't understand what to do. So then my self-esteem went lower and lower and lower. So I just basically gave up on trying to do jobs and trying to find my way in life. So if I'd have known I had ASD, I could have said to people, you know what, I need a little bit more help. I need these things put in place. I need, these strategies put in place for me to be able to cope. But then perhaps I would have been a lot more successful in the 3D world. But sadly, that wasn't the case. So, yeah.
And thank you for all that. And as you were growing up,
yes.
I mean, when did you start being aware of the fact that you had these voices going on in your head, and was there a point where you thought, well, actually, this isn't happening to everybody around me? At what stage did you realize that this wasn't, I'm not going to use the word normal, because that's 3D, that's gone, that word. Yeah. We don't use that in our new paradigm. Thank you very much. And anyway, who wants to be normal? Yawn, yawn, you know. But, you know, when did you start realizing this?
I started realizing that I wasn't like everybody else, especially around the time when I had friends. Especially when I got older, I started gaining friends, and then I'd be telling friends information that I didn't realize was perhaps information that they couldn't cope with. It was information that was more detailed than just how are you doing, how's work, how's this. I'd be telling more details like, do you know that do you realize that you actually have an issue here? Do you realize that you could be doing this? I was diving deeper into their personal things that obviously I didn't realize were personal barriers. I was going beyond the ordinary conversation. So I'd be saying something like, do you know if you healed this, this would happen? If you did this, that would happen. And then eventually people wouldn't speak to me. They would just be suddenly ignoring me on the phone. They wouldn't come around to visit. They weren't connected with me. So then I started thinking to myself, what's wrong with me? So that's when I started to beat myself up, started to feel very low self-esteem, started to think to myself, I'm not very good at keeping friends. There must be something very wrong with me. So it was more about, I didn't realize the voices in my head I didn't realize they were spirit and people connecting with me and channeling information for people. I thought they were I didn't even recognize them as anything particular. I'd just be on the phone, and all of a sudden I'd be saying all this stuff to people, all this information, thinking it was normal. Yeah. And they would be, the next thing they'd be quiet, and the next thing they wouldn't pick up the phone to me again. So I wasn't consciously aware that these voices were not normal compared to everyone else. I just assumed that I blamed myself. In fact, I blamed myself when they didn't pick up the phone and didn't want to talk to me. I just assumed that was the reason why. I never really thought of it as anything normal. Yeah.
This must happen to so many people, and I hope, you know, that this will help people that are listening. Yeah. How did this play out when you got married, Donna? Did you try and ignore the voices in your head, or?
To me, it caused a lot of conflict, because my husband would say one thing to me in an argument, and I'd be saying another thing, because I could read his thoughts and I could read the messages around him. So it'd be saying one thing to me, and I'd be going, no, that's wrong, because I know it's this. So then our egos would be constantly clashing. He would be getting madder with me, and I would be getting angrier with him. But I didn't realize I was arguing with him on a 5D level rather than just an ordinary 3D level. So when I was arguing with him, I could see beyond the story he wanted to let me know was the truth, but I could see the true story. So it caused a lot of tension and friction between us. And I think that I didn't realize that caused a lot of difficulty between us, a lot, because he would be saying one thing to me and I'd be saying, no, this is what I see, this is what it is. And therefore I could never just settle for just a simple explanation. It had to go into a big massive, what could start off as a small argument would end up in quite a big one, because I couldn't just accept the simple 3D explanation for what he was saying. So it did cause a lot of tension between us.
Yeah. So you sat on this, if you will, uncomfortably till about 2016, which was only 5 years ago, let's face it.
Yeah.
And going back to that day that you were diagnosed and you came out, and obviously I presume you took quite a while to sort of digest it all. But did you start feeling once you had digested it, did you feel any relief, or, oh, that's why this? Or when did you start kind of feeling, oh, that's why that happened when I was young, and that's why that happened then? And or did it take a little bit longer?
When I first got diagnosed, the first couple of weeks, I went into complete and absolute anger. I was very, very angry. Very, very, very angry, very sad, very resentful, thinking if I'd have known that I had the ASD from when I was a child, I would have had a different childhood at school, different time at school. Then in my marriage, by then I'd broken down, I would have thought I could have given it more time, more thought, and he could have given me more time and thought, because he would have understood that I had the autism, and I would have understood myself, and therefore there would have been a lot more time. And then I also got resentful because I thought my children, I never gave them the time and understanding I perhaps would have gave them if I'd have realized that I had these issues. So at first it was a lot of mourning, a lot of sadness about who I used to be and who I was becoming and who I was becoming once I was aware of what's happened to me. So it was a lot of heartache and a lot of pain at first when I first discovered it. And then as time went on, I started to look at it from a different point of view. I started to research actually what is autism in adults, what is Asperger's, what is it? Let me have a look at it. Let me try to understand it. Let me try to dissect it. Let me try to work it out so I can be the most compassionate to myself about it. So I can try and work through the pain and understanding. And basically that's what I did. I kind of like worked through it, tried to research and discover what it is, and then look at it from a more compassionate point of view. But first, yes, it was mourning and anger at first for the person I was and the person I could have been and the person I was becoming. So that's what my first, that part, yeah.
And then sort of how soon after that did you start seeking healers and perhaps start dipping your toes into your real journey, your spiritual journey as a spiritual learning how to be human?
I think in 2019, towards the end, about September time, I was standing in the garden and I suddenly had this overwhelming desperation of complete darkness and sadness. And I thought, and I just went to my knees and I said to Source, either take me now or show me a different path, because I cannot stay here any longer under this confusion that I have in my mind. I don't know who I am, what I am, and I don't know what I'm doing. And that when that moment hit, I just literally went to my knees and I was ready to go, because I just felt like I did not fit here. I could not fit into the 3D. I could not, I did not understand what was happening to me. I tried my best to understand people. I tried my best to fit in. I tried my best not to tried my best to understand why people were constantly rejecting me. And it all became so overwhelming that I just decided, right, that was either I either go or the path changes. So September.
Had you met your beautiful partner at that stage?
Yes, I had met her by then. Yes, I met her in 2014. So lovely. Yes.
So she's been on the journey with you.
Yes,
Tracy.
Absolutely. Yeah. She's a catalyst to me finding out about my autism and my journey. Yes.
Fabulous.
Because, she's very still and very supportive. So, so in September, and then after September 2019, it seemed to go quite fast to 2020, January. And then
that's the month.
Yes, that's the month. January 2020, I joined the spiritual circle. And the spiritual circle, and I joined it. I went to sessions every week with a lovely teacher in her house. And we were doing a spiritual circle, and she was teaching us about development work and spiritual. She was teaching us cards. She was teaching us how to read auras. She was teaching us all the basics, and it was really, really, really interesting. Then, of course,
did you feel you fitted in better there?
I felt like I could come home, because there was a group of ladies, about 8 of us, and I felt like I could come home. And I remember walking into her house, shaking like a leaf, and she looked at me. She said, "Oh my goodness," she said, "you look petrified." I said, I'm absolutely petrified, but for some reason I feel like I'm meant to be here, and I feel like I've come home to a place where I belong. So I sat with the other ladies, and I actually really enjoyed it. And then, of course, February came, February 2020, we all got locked down. And then we went onto the computer. But sadly, by then, we went onto the computer, but it didn't quite have the same resonance. It didn't quite have the group dynamics didn't quite work. So by April 2020, I walked away from that group, quite sadly, and I found that really difficult. But sometimes you have to walk away when it doesn't suit you anymore. And then I felt that overwhelming feeling again of going back down to that lonely, lost place again. I thought, what am I going to do now? Then my partner, she went onto the computer. She discovered a lady called Dolores Cannon. And then when she discovered Dolores Cannon, she went into all the past life regression and everything. They said, I'm going to find a practitioner who can do this kind of stuff, and I'm going to book a session with her. So she booked a session with a lovely lady called Tina. So she booked a session with her. Then I said, I'll give her a go. So I booked in a session for the next day. And then when I switched on the computer and I looked at Tina and Tina looked at me, she burst out crying and I burst out crying. And she said, I'm here to take you on your spiritual journey. And I looked at her, and, oh my goodness. And then
this point, let's give Tina Slade a big shout out here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tina.
How we met.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you know, met
Yeah.
by Tina, and she
Absolutely.
is the most amazing healer. If you look her up on
YouTube?
Google or whatever you do, tinaslade.org. She's an amazing healer.
Absolutely.
Carrying on the work of Dolores Cannon, isn't she?
Absolutely, so, definitely.
Anyway, but back to you. But I just felt I needed to give a big shout
absolutely.
out.
I agree. So so basically I met Tina, and then Tina says to me that I was her teacher once upon a time in Atlantis, and she was now my teacher now to wake me up. And I looked at her like, what is she talking about? I don't understand a word she's saying to me. What's Atlantis? What's waking up? Or what does she mean by teacher? And I was like just blown away by her. But anyway, for the next hour, we spent most of it crying, reconnecting. She did some most amazing light language. If you don't know what light language is, please look it up. It's just absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
And she did some wonderful light language with me. And then I just went off the computer, just absolutely blown away. But then that started me on my journey to the spiritual, because when she did that, it resonated with me. And then she kindly did some more sessions with me for 6 more weeks. And each week she started talking to me through it and helping me and guiding me. And then I had a gap, because that took us up to June. Then I had a gap, and then in January 2021, something about January 2021, I started doing classes with Tina, online classes, which then took me to doing, I went into a meditation in one of Tina's classes, which took me into becoming a beautiful star in the sky. And when I became a beautiful star in the sky, I saw stars, and I suddenly had this feeling I need to do a star chart. So I contacted Tina, and Tina said, I know this wonderful lady called Serena. And so she connected me with you, and that's how we met. And that's how my journey began with you, Serena.
You had we looked at your astrological birth chart, didn't we?
Absolutely. And I was just absolutely blown away by astrological star chart. I have never experienced something so wonderful. You explained so many things to me that I could not believe. You answered so many. I had a list of questions, and you answered every single question. I wanted to know my mission. I wanted to know why I was here, and you answered them all. You answered all my questions. I'm very grateful for that.
That's good. So you were well on your spiritual journey by this point. Were you having were you able then to trying to find the right word, really manage the voices in your head, or were you more at peace with them, or did that come a little bit later on? Is there somebody who's trying to get through? You're starting to cough.
Yes, sorry, it feels like.
Oh, if somebody is, let them through, because it's kind of working. It'll be working while we're doing the interview.
Absolutely. That's another thing that, thanks to you, Serena, that I've discovered that when my cough comes, it's somebody trying to get through. Where before that, I was taking constant cough tablets and trying to get it better. But now to discover that the cough is someone trying to get through, it's very important. I don't know who's trying to get through, but they're welcome to come through whenever they're ready.
Well, do you want to just link in there and have a pause in the interview and see? There's a message for everybody. No pressure.
The message is basically it's time for humanity to step into its power. To all step into your power and not be afraid. Yeah, because we're all here to heal each other and to support each other. That's the message I'm getting at this moment. Yeah.
I resonate greatly with being brave, because people now have to step up, don't they?
Absolutely. This is quite
speak their truth.
This is a very hard time for people, because what's happening is a lot of people are getting family isolation, loneliness, because they're feeling like they're the only one waking up. And as you can see, I can totally resonate with that. That's where my voice is going, because I'm speaking my truth, pushing past the barriers and speaking into my truth. And trying to come out quicker than I'm letting it. So that's why I think I'm getting this throat as well. Please bear with me.
Okay, so give it a rest for a second and I'll just sort of try and talk for a minute. Well, it's never any great difficult for me being a Gemini. But, yeah, so Donna's taken us to, well into last year, and you'd done the course with Tina, the fabulous Tina Slade, and then we had our astrological reading, and then
yes.
I think actually, no, I think you had your reading before your course with Tina, because didn't I come and give an astrological talk?
I was doing two
one night on Zoom, didn't I? For the group, your group. I was sort of guest speaker on one of the nights, wasn't I? If I remember rightly. But I think it was then that you might have, after that, I think it was after that you messaged me and said, would it, because you had approached me before and I said, I don't think it's the right time. And then after that, you approached me again and said, would it now be the right time for me to do some spiritual life coaching with you?
Well, yeah, what happened is that I was doing a mediumship course with Tina from January to the May, and then it crossed over for me to do a psychic course with Tina. And then what happened is that you came and talked on the psychic course.
Yeah.
Yes.
About
so you again.
Yeah.
But by then you did my star chart for me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I think I remember it was back in sort of January, February time. Actually, I did your star chart. I think it's so delightful how you call it star chart. Yeah, birth chart, horoscope, whatever people want to call it. But I like that star chart. I think I'm going to adopt.
But that's what opened up for me. When I saw you for my star chart, that's when I knew I had this feeling that you mentioned you do spiritual life coaching. And I remember thinking, I'd love you to be my spiritual life coach. And I did approach you and you said, no, not at this point. It's not the right time. And then when I saw you again on my course, then I thought to myself, I'd ask you again because it felt like it was the right time. And that's when I came.
And indeed it was. Yeah. And any last sort of points on what you felt you came away with from your courses with Tina? How did that shift you with regard to your diagnosis?
For me, when I went with Tina, it started to make sense about my diagnosis. How it coincided with diagnosis was that came to the point where I suddenly realized that in the 3D world, I'm seen as Asperger's, but in the actual 5D world, I have gifts, very powerful gifts of psychic and developing, thanks to you, my mediumship with confidence. I feel that my spiritual gifts are making more sense to me now, because that explains why I couldn't fit into the 3D box, into the 3D ordinary box that people had tried to place me into. But now when I come into the spiritual world, I can step in now, and now you've taught me to rein in my psychic gifts. So when I go and talk to a friend now, I'll talk to them on a level of just very simple conversation. But once upon a time, like I've said before, I would have stepped into the conversation and gone to past the boundaries, past certain points that they didn't want me to go into. But now, thanks to having the support, having the spiritual life coaching with you, Serena, is now I've started to step into myself, and I know now to place in boundaries when I talk to people. I know now when to step into my psychic, and I also know when my mediumship gift is coming in. Like now, when I start to cough, I know now that that's usually a message from a loved one coming in, or I'm channeling a message from some higher realms. But before that, for me, it was just pure voices just all over the place. I was just had no boundaries. I wasn't reined in. I was confused. I was taking tablets and trying to still my mind. But they were trying to steal my mind. But now I can sit with it, and I can sit, and I've learned to, before once upon a time, meditation would have been absolutely impossible for me to have actually sat and done a meditation. Now I'm able to meditate, I'm able to do yoga, I'm able to focus, I'm able to learn to ground, I'm able to learn to I've got so many tools, as you would say, in my toolkit, thanks to you, Serena, that once upon a time I would not have had. And I'd literally be all over the place. And the major emotion I had once upon a time was anger. That was my very number one. Every day you can guarantee that I was in anger.
Well, that's frustration, isn't it?
Yes,
that you don't understand what's going on, and you're all bottled inside of you until you're back explode, really.
Absolutely. Unable to express myself, unable to express what unable to express the messages that were coming to me, because all I knew is if I gave a message to somebody, which I obviously look back now was a message, the person would automatically reject me. And rejection became a major emotion for me that I really, really struggled with. And it's something that now I've been able to accept. So when I think someone rejects me, in my perspective of it, of the situation, is they're not necessarily rejecting me. There's something inside them that needs to heal and needs to be. And I now learn to allow them to heal whatever they need to heal. And I've learned not to carry everybody else's problems as my own. Yeah. And that's when I've worked through the other interesting tool that you've also taught me to use, journaling and shadow work. Working through shadow work, as obviously working through shadow work is like working through the dark side of you, the pain, the side of you that's in pain, the side of you that can't express itself, so it comes out through lots of different negative emotions. So that,
and of course, it's also the side of us that actually we're rather ashamed to actually voice and tell people, even sometimes a counsellor or a coach or whatever, whoever you're seeing.
Absolutely.
So journaling's safe.
Absolutely, it's safe.
Okay, if you want to burn the pages afterwards, fine, fair enough. But it gets it out. It's the cheapest therapy on the planet. It gets it out. Absolutely. Out of the head, out of the body, comes down the arm, and you're writing, and it's on the paper, grounded. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And also other information comes out at the same time, doesn't it? So it's a win-win, isn't it?
Absolutely, you're right, because journaling is like the onion. It layers the pieces, and then as you unpeel the onion, you start to allow yourself to start to see other things happening to you, because as for every time you take a little piece of the darkness and bring it out to the light, you heal it, but it also allows you to see another part of you that you perhaps never realized was affecting you every day. Like for me, the autism it was the answer to one question, but it wasn't. But all it did at one point is create more questions. Because of it, you go into a deep, dark space, you become angry, you become into negative emotions. But once you start to realize what it is, you can look at it from a positive point of view, right? I've got Asperger's. How will I change my life now to work around it? Once you did that, it steps you into your spiritual path. Once it steps you into the spiritual path, you can start to see yourself in a more compassionate way. And you start to see that the voices are actually spirits coming to help you, coming to guide you, coming to help others. But you also learn to put the boundaries in. Once, like you've taught me the tools, put the boundaries in so you can still be in the 3D world functioning every day, but then also be compassionate to yourself. When you go into psychic reading, you can open yourself up and you start to become quite attuned, because you've really sort of embraced yourself. So it's really important.
It's a very interesting point you're making, Donna, and I think it would be very helpful to a lot of people who are on this journey and haven't quite got to where you're at yet. And I remember us talking on one of our sessions quite a lot about the interference.
Yes.
You could be standing in the supermarket, minding your own business, and some random person's granny comes through who's passed, or you've got some information, and it's all totally inappropriate. You can't go up to somebody. I mean, they'd call the police or security. They think this woman's lost the plot.
Yes.
So, but again, what do you do with this information, and how do you stop spirit? We want to talk to you, but how do we manage it so that they need to know when you, Donna, are working and wanting to connect with them, and when you're not? And we kind of devised some ways for you, didn't we?
Yes.
For you to shut off those voices.
Absolutely, which was really important. Yeah.
Tell people about how you do that. Share that if you could.
Well, it's interesting you should say, because a lot of my anger did come from picking up other people's anger when I'd leave the house. When I'd leave the house, I was completely unaware that I was actually like a magnet. I was drawing other people's emotions to me and attaching myself to them.
Yeah, which we do. Yeah. All of us light workers do that.
That's right. And because I was unaware that I was doing that, I was going out, and then if people were coming closer to me physically, I'd be lashing out at them, looking at them, make sure they couldn't come near me. So I'd be constantly on edge. So it'd be quite an exhausting experience to go outside and go to the supermarket. So then you explained to me that what I should do is actually create a grounding. So every morning now when I get up, I create a little grounding prayer that I do every day, and then I put a shield around me. white light of shield around me. So when I do go out now, I don't absorb as much energy or negativity. And another thing you taught me was to have like keywords. So for me now, when I'm going to do a psychic reading or a mediumship reading, I will now create what I call the shop. So I say the shop is now open. You can please come in and bring your messages, and I'm happy to give the message to the person I'm working with. But then once I finish, I say the shop is closed and I'm no longer working, and please step away. And now since I've done that, the voices have gone and I'm in much more control of myself than I once was. I'm much more in control of my gifts, and I'm not as wayward as I used to be. I'm not picking up on, so I can go out for a walk and have a pleasant walk, and I can say have a pleasant conversation with people, but there's no confusion about reading them and going up my boundaries. The boundaries are clear now between me and spirit. The boundaries are clear, and that's thanks to you, Serena, because before that I was just very, very confused. And for the whole of my more or less life, I've been very confused, picking up people's energies, picking up messages, picking up thoughts that they're having, picking up so many bits and pieces of people that I kind of lost myself in there. And for me to come to you and do this spiritual life coaching has brought me to realize which part's Donna and which part is the spirit world and which part are others. So now, thanks to that, I can put it in different little packages and keep it all there ready for opening when I need to. It's not all over the place now. I'm not so scattery. I'm not as exhausted and I'm not as confused. So, yeah.
Lovely. And that's really good explanation. And what about this cough? Because that's something we were talking about in our session this morning, weren't we?
Yes.
So what would happen? I presume then, now you've got all this in place, this cough, or you wouldn't get a message someone wants to try and get through if you're waiting to catch the bus.
Yes, once upon a time, if I was I'd be standing with people, and then all of a sudden, very unconscious, it's not conscious, I would be standing in the bus stop, and all of a sudden I'd be getting all these negative emotions of anger and rage and all these sort of feelings, and then I'd be like, but I wouldn't be I was picking up on all these things. So now when you say about I've lost the question a bit. What was it? Question?
Well, it's like you've got all this set now that the shop's open and it's not.
Yes.
I'm kind of making a statement almost, but also a question. I presume this wouldn't happen, that they would interfere anymore, because you haven't told them the shop's open. So if you're waiting at the bus stop,
if you're waiting at the bus stop now, yes, I can.
You wouldn't have a coughing, you wouldn't start coughing. No.
Oh no, the coughing used to always be there, but I always thought it was a bad, was allergies. I thought it was hay fever. But then you pointed out to me, Serena, which has been an absolute, so amazing that you've done this for me, is explained to me that the coughing is spirit trying to get through to give me a message. And
the throat chakra.
The throat chakra. Absolutely. The throat chakra is blocked. And also it's for me to speak my truth. To be not afraid to speak my truth. So it's both, there's two elements to it. Speak my truth, and also to allow me to speak others' truth through me as well, to give messages for others. But that tends to be a cough if I'm having a conversation with you now, and I'm picking up on something for you, a message, then I don't speak that message for you, like you said, Donna, speak the message. I start to cough because that message is blocked in my throat chakra. So that's something you've actually shown me, which has been absolutely a lifesaver, because before that I would be taking constant hay fever tablets, cough medicine, and now I know what it is. I can sort of say to myself, oh, it's my throat chakra wanting to release a message. And not only that, you've also taught me all of my chakras, which has been an amazing tool for me, because obviously coming from a world of not knowing anything about spiritual things, this has been all new for me, completely new. So to learn all of these tools has helped me manage myself, and to help me manage my autism as well. So it's a double.
Fabulous. And I think this is a good point to actually say that we are, in actual fact, all spiritual beings, learning how to be human.
I agree.
And that's what we are not encouraged to understand.
Absolutely.
But we are all spiritual beings learning how to be the best human we can while we visit this planet, however short or long it's going to be. And something that's come to me as you've been talking that I think would be helpful for people again who are inspired by what you've got to say, and who maybe be suffering what you suffered some while ago. You know, what do I do with this? Where do I go, etc. How would you advise them, and where would you advise them to go to get help? And how would you advise people to vet someone who advertises themselves as a spiritual teacher, someone who runs a circle, someone, etc., etc., etc. Because as we know, there are all sorts of sort of spiritual teachers, ordinary teachers, lawyers, accountants who aren't so good, and others that are exceptionally good.
Yeah.
So, you know, are there any sort of signs that you could caution people to look for, you know, and say, okay, well, I don't think this is the right teacher for me, I'll go and try and find someone else?
I think that's,
people get led down other pathways.
I agree. I think for me, I agree. The key for me would be to say, not be afraid to change your teacher. Number one, don't be afraid to change your teacher, because I find that when you're, especially when you have autism, you don't like a lot of change. So you'll try to adapt to that person rather than change. And I think that's something you've got to be prepared to do, is to change your teacher. And I think your teacher will resonate with you. And also have a list of questions for that teacher that you really, really would like answered. And if that teacher can answer those questions in a way that makes you feel very satisfied from the first answer they give you, then they're usually the best teacher for you. Because everybody comes here to learn different lessons and to learn different things. So I think for me, you're my perfect teacher, but for others, you might not be. But I mean,
exactly.
That's okay. But I think that you have a list of questions and ask that teacher the questions. And if they fit with you, really resonate with you, then you know it's the right teacher. And if they're not, don't be afraid to change teacher, because life is all about learning. And I think that the teacher for you that will be there will be the one that will learn from you, and you will learn from them. And I think the exchange will be so easily, the flow will be so easy that you won't be questioning anything. You'll just be going away from that session and saying, wow, I've learned so much. I can really take that and really work with it and really understand and really go and practice this. And it keeps you interested, and you start to grow and you start to feel it. Intuitively, we know inside, but my advice would be never try just to be loyal to that one teacher. If that teacher doesn't work for you, don't be afraid to move on, because there's always to be a teacher for you.
That's brilliant. I'm not laughing at you, but that light's coming back. It's all over you. Can you see it?
Yeah.
We had a bit of a laugh this morning. Spirit were trying to butt in and get because it was safe. They're allowed to do these sessions. Yeah. And it's really bright next to you now.
And I'm in the shade. That's the thing I don't get.
Yeah, it's wafting over you, and your face is really lighting up. Which is beautiful. I guess it's them saying, you know, they're confirming what you're saying, unless there's anything you feel you want to add.
I would just like to say that just because you're in the 3D world and diagnosed with autism, Asperger's, and as an adult you've given up and you think, oh my goodness, what am I here for? I can't fit into the 3D world. I can't fit into the postage stamp box. I don't know what to do with myself. I've been pushed on the dump and I don't know what to do. There's a reason why you're there, and there's a reason why you're there in that feeling. You've got to think to yourself, what do I want? Write a list of the things that you want and go find the teacher that will help you step into that. Step into you. Because once you're pushed out the 3D world and you feel like you're lonely, that's a good thing, because now you're ready to step into the 5D. So thank you.
Fabulous. So, I mean, that brings me really just last thing. What do you see for the future for you, Donna?
I see that I want to be a good teacher as you are, Serena, and help as many people in humanity as I possibly can to step into their true selves.
The check's in the post.
I look forward to it. Have a holiday.
That's very sweet of you to say that, Donna. But I mean, do you want to teach people? Do you want to have sessions with channeling, mediumship? Do you want to do shadow work with people, or a combination of all? Is that your forward plan?
My forward plan is to do shadow work with people, help them step into their true self, and I would like to become, eventually I'd like to be a teacher, to teach people
Good.
how to do it themselves, how to be the best selves. Yeah. I'd like
And
to
very, very briefly, could you just briefly explain, just again, very briefly, what people would get from shadow work, and would mediumship come into it?
Shadow work is about healing the inner child, the inner self, the wounded self. The wounded self that needs healing, that usually comes out through ill health, through mental health, can come out in so many ways. And I think, yeah, shadow work is about what we suppress. It comes the shadow. It's not an evil side of us. It's just a side that we suppress. If we're creative and we're told we're not allowed to be creative because there's no money and we must do something where there's money, all about.
You don't fit in or something.
You don't fit in. You feel alone. You've never fitted in life. You've been told that you're always different. You're told that you're very lonely. It helps you heal that side of you that's broken. The side of you that's been suppressed so you can fit into this society. So once you've healed that, faced up to that and healed that, you can step into the magical person you really are. And I think that's what shadow work is about. It's about taking the part that we're told is the bad side of us, which is not the bad side of us. It's the side that fills us full of light and love, and the side of us that we need to heal and love and hold. That's the side of us that shadow work. And I'd like to help people heal and re-love themselves. But we can help you and guide you, but it's all about you doing the work. We're just here to hold you while you do it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Donna, thank you so much.
Thank you, Serena.
It's been very, very interesting what you've told us this afternoon, and I'm sure loads of people are going to want to get in touch. Are you going to leave your details underneath?
My details will be left below. And also, my details will be left below. So please get in touch if you feel I resonate with you. And also if Serena resonates with you too.
Oh, bless you. All right. Well, I think unless there's anything else you want to tell us, I think that's probably a good place to conclude.
Thank you. Thank you, Serena. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.